What's up, demons and demonettes? Tis I, Traxy Demon Kowihan, and today I wanted to bring you the first in the Survivor Guide to Waves of Intrigue. But before we get into it, as always, toss a like and subscribe down below. So what I want to do is do kind of like a series of guides to help you get ready for the new season, which starts very shortly. So today we're going to cover one of the biggest areas that you're going to need to do, and that's going to be stages. So let's get into it, because manual is pretty much dead. Just trying to get it to work. There's counter control units on some stages. You're gonna see one in the stage that I'm currently on, and you can't run the smoky comp because it's just too slow and it doesn't work. So you can't, without Cascade, you can't get the energy regen that you need on your heroes without the buffs. So it's very slow. You can't lock down the enemies and get them into Smokey's third ult by the time it goes off, because it's all just too slow. So you're kind of going to be reliant on two sets of teams, right? So here you see you're going to encounter stages. This is the second time I think I've encountered Lily May, and this has been a really nasty stage. One of my friends actually figured it out, so we're just kind of borrow, right? So they're kind of borrowing the same PvP strategy, right? Where we run Brian to bait Lily May, and then we can lock everybody down. So we're going to try this out, and we're going to see if it works. But we're going to run, this is going to be the core of most of your teams, is these four heroes right here, right? So we have your Ardens, your Carolinas, Omis, and Aaron, right? And then you're going to have the flex bot. In this case, we're flexing in Brian. He's going to bait Lily May, and then we're going to be able to lock down the rest of the mobs and hopefully burn them down. Typically, what I would run with this is either a Lumont or Tamicia. If I need a heals, I would run Damien. Those are kind of like your go-to sets for control. There's gonna be other cases of where you're gonna run into the Dead Tide mobs, and what you're gonna want to run in those cases is that's when you're probably gonna want your, if it wants to yank everybody, or if I gotta do it, I gotta do it manually. All right, so it's beta, you know, it comes with a warning label. Now, so you see he ran Verdant. Typically, when I run control, I'll run frontline. It just works better. It has the haste and the life drain. But in that case, I would run that one. For this other squad, I'm going to run Tide Call typically, but this is going to look usually something like this.
Let's brighten up the battlefield.
Haywen, and then Smokey. So Smokey's still going to get used. He's just not going to be as dominant, right? So we would probably run, I want to say, maybe something like this. I'd probably switch it. Now, I did try this on this stage earlier, because this is kind of my, like, go-to counter control unit. And basically it relies on Taylene burning down enemies with kind of like Odie picking them off, and then maybe Smokey burning down any melee ones, because usually what happens is the Dead Tide mobs in the back, they're kind of like casters, they're kind of weak. Between Odie and Taylene, they're usually pretty easy to burn down, so you just really have to worry about keeping the squad alive and then dealing with the frontliners. Now, this doesn't work because the chainsaw guys, they just do too much damage, and then you have the gunners in the back. It's just a nightmare. This is a guaranteed loss. I've already tried it, but those are kind of like the two push comps that I'm running. Control is going to be your best bet in the long run. That's the one you're going to use most. This one you'll use a bit too, at least on this side of things. So let's go here. Let's test this out, and then we can see this in action. Right, so he baits Lily May, and then we're able to lock down the rest of the squad. And with them locked down, we're easily burning them out. Because the problem I was having earlier is those chainsaw guys, they're really nasty. They're like really, really nasty.
Every sword is a witness.
Right, so we do that. We've been going heavy into auto progress too. So right, I would go here, I would do auto battle, and then we would click auto progress. For here, I could probably just run your standard control. obviously we have no records available. Either people are auto-progressing stages or it's just not creating records. There is... So this is the other thing. This is kind of like the new thing. So I haven't seen multi-team yet. I don't know if multi-team exists. I don't know if we're going to get it later, right? So we get this right off the bat. It's called the seasonal special stage. And what's different about the seasonal special stage is you have... This is where the seasonal talents come in, right? So you have your talent trees. So basically what this does is you deploy... Currently it's 4. It's going to get changed to 3. So you don't have to go as heavy into one faction or another to get this work. But we're essentially going to use the same concept, right? So we went big on Wilder, and with a little bit of a focus on Celestial Hypogeans, Graveborn, and Mauler, because we use those more for push. We don't really use a lot of light bearer heroes in push at this time, so I didn't really build up their seasonal skill talents as much. You have to build... I mean, we'll get into the talents later, but suffice to say, you need to have 4 heroes at this time, which is going to be 3 to get this bonus buff tile. And then if you just click on here, it's going to tell you what it does, right? So the Prime Carrier loses 50% of their max HP. They get an Absorb Shield. They become unaffected, and they get additional attack speed. At the higher levels, right? So like the bottom, you can click on it, you can buff it, increase the prep, so they increase their normal attack damage. You don't need to put a hero from that faction on the buff tile. You can essentially put any hero on the buff tile and they will get the buff. You just need the X amount of heroes from that faction to create it. So it's going to be the same concept here. That's why it's going to make it a little harder on those counter control stages where you do want to run Freyasto. I did have a stage where, I went big money. I ran all Celestials, Hypogeans. I had 4 out there, and then I think it was Freyasto, Burial, Taline, Scarlita, and Smokey, right? And that was the comp. It was kind of a split map. I ran that comp. It had great success because we got the buff tile. We gave it to Burial. He's kind of a nuisance. He's iffy on stages. He's becoming a bigger factor in Arena. But those are kind of like the 2 comps. So you want to run this control comp. You're going to use this one a lot. And it's the core. I usually give the buff tile to Carolina. With them changing it to 3, we'll be able to run a Temesia or Lumont. Still get the buff tile. Still be good. I've just been running Damien or like a Haywin in these cases. Maybe a Florabelle instead of Carolina to create that buff tile. But essentially we want to get that buff tile to give us that little extra oomph in these AFK stages for the seasonal. Yeah, so those are kind of like the teams that I'm running. And those are kind of like the heroes you're going to want to build. Now, at least for me, I have a lot of those heroes already built up, right? So they're all S+, Paragon levels, plus 15, maybe plus 20. In my case, I just kind of want to build up Carolina, because everybody else in my unit that I run, that's those heroes, is at least plus 20, right? Except for, like, the tankies, like your Temesia is like a 15, Lumont's a plus 10. So maybe we would want to build up Temesia, but she's kind of situational. The same thing with Lumont, he's situational. It's just kind of like trial and error and finding out who works better on which stages. Maybe you can check records and see what other people are running. Some people run Temesia, some people run Lumont, and then they swap between the 2. I've been swapping between the 2. And that's it for this one, and I will catch you in the next one. Laters!